with a lot of founders and CEOs over the years, and they're all great people, smart, ambitious, intelligent, every positive characteristic you can think of. But I've also seen them fail when it comes to some very, very important aspects. And I want to talk about 3 case studies where their lack of curiosity, lack of being a curious leader, led directly to some major failures of these organizations. The first one, the curious leader I talk about, is that shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. And I was brought into an organization to help change some things and rebuild the departments. They had a couple of years in the red. And one of the things I noticed the organization wasn't doing was bringing video content and video strategies to their organization. And quite frankly, it was an area where their competitor was beating them hands down. And this is after I brought a number of changes to this organization, and I brought it to the founder and CEO, and the response I got was, that's not the vision I had for this company when I started it 27 years ago. And my initial thought was like, so 27 years ago, before Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, you didn't envision video being a major mechanism for outreach and content for our audience. Had you done that, you would have been a different kind of entrepreneur. But I get his point, right? Like, what didn't fit with how he saw things, I think it's coupled with a couple of things, right? I'd brought a lot of changes, maybe too quickly. And this was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, if you will. But it also was in relation to a competitor. But to me, what it showcases is that inability to have a growth mindset, that what you're doing can be more, can be different, and not be stuck in those original ways of viewing your organization and what it's capable of. The next shift I talk about is operational excellence. I love talking about operational excellence. It's where I've built my backbone, launching and managing efficient and effective internal operations to help organizations grow. And I started working with an organization, startup in the tech world, AI world, and I immediately came across, they just had the most ridiculous and absurd functions for accounting. I mean, everyone saw everything went everywhere, multiple systems, multiple bank accounts, no real tracking. It was all a mess. And so I had to kind of really dive in and make some recommendations for this founder. And here's the craziest part. He knew that the last 2 years had been very, very inefficient and had a lot of mistakes. And so I gave him the roadmap to how to fix these problems. But he kept coming back. It ended up taking me 4 months to solve these problems when it should have taken 2 weeks, because he kept resorting back to, how do I make sure that these problems don't keep existing? Like, this is it. The process and procedures of how you do things is the way to make sure it's not repeated. And he just couldn't grasp the fact that, like, I wasn't providing some major solution and these consultative things. It was adopting some platforms, a platform that was streamlined everything, and then having a process and how we handled everything and where it flowed was the key to solving all the problems. And because he couldn't wrap his head around the solution being that simple, I think, he kept wanting to go back to, how do I make sure this is going to solve a problem? Now, I love saying the term, unless you're the lead singer of a one-person band, you got to bring the team along with you, which is the third shift. And it's about creating a curious culture. And the curious culture, as I talk about all the time, is about building this environment where people can speak up, speak out, bring ideas, bring solutions, point out problems on a regular basis to allow the organization to keep adapting and changing to continue to grow and innovate. And what I've seen time and time again a lot of times is that leaders think they're building that type of organization or that type of culture. It's a lot of times it's very top-down heavy. We have one chance to get this right. We're going to make history. No one's ever done this before. All these esoteric sayings that make them feel like what they're doing is so special. And they want to create a team that's smart, intelligent, ambitious, innovative, and solves problems. But the culture that I've seen an organization build, and one in particularly, actually created a culture where what the staff learned to do was keep their head down, do as little as possible, don't put yourself out there, was the best way to keep your job. So inevitably, you're not getting the best ideas. You're not getting problems pointed out. They thought they were building one thing, but because the way they manage the culture, where they manage the staff, they're creating something completely different. So you got to make sure that you're being realistic about what you're building and how it's coming across. I finally started making some inroads with the founders and helping them see this little by little, but it took a long time. And so make sure you're being realistic. So I'm excited, soon we're gonna release the Curious Culture Assessment, which I'm excited to be launching in the next couple of months, because it's really gonna help organizations see where they are. But really, one way that each of these founders could have really avoided some setbacks in organizations, one even closed at one point for a little while, the way they could have avoided each of these pitfalls was to adopt curious leadership within their model and drove and led through that.